When the Dolphins made the trade for Tyreek Hill last offseason, you said, oh, okay, they're actually trying to get Tua the help that he needs. They're trying to have an explosive, high-profile, prolific offense. I like when teams do that. Roll the dice, take some chances, invest in supporting and helping your young quarterback. Just like I was very intrigued and excited by their hiring of Mike McDaniel. The best way I can describe it, and I mean this in all respect, is he's got kind of like this kind of putsy, dorky knob type of vibe to him, and it's fantastic. To me, anyways. He's just kind of got like this cool cat vibe. He's not too full of himself. And, when I think about some of my favorite coaches in the NFL current state, McDaniel's in that top tier in terms of favorites for me, along with guys like Dan Campbell and Andy Reid. Mike McDaniel, fucking, I wish he was the Bears coach, for Christ's sakes. I wish he was there to work with Justin Fields. Because this dude knows fucking ball. He knows offense. And that's how you help a young quarterback. So as harsh as I've been in recent years on general manager Chris Grier, and frankly, he still deserves criticism. It's not like he's winning playoff games as a general manager. It's not like it took him until the third head coach to potentially get it right. I cannot deny that I was much more impressed with what he did in 2022 than I had been impressed with him in previous years. And early on, the returns looked promising for the Dolphins. They started off 3-0. They had big wins over New England and Baltimore and Buffalo. And that made you kind of stand up and take notice and say, man, that offense could score a lot of points. Tua is not special. Sorry, Tuanon. Here come the Tuanon folks and be like, this is a conspiracy that is spread throughout the country. They're against our hero, Tua Tagovailoa. Tuanon. You gotta love Tuanon. They're almost as batshit as Bears fans. Almost. But as exciting and interesting and compelling as that start was, then you started getting into the Tua concussion saga. And that was something that played out off and on throughout the course of the year. And the Dolphins certainly struggled without Tua. They're a better team with Tua starting, no question about it. But they were able to still backdoor their way into the playoffs, got in there, and even with a backup quarterback, they put up a decent fight against the Bills in the wild card round. They lost 34-31, but they put up a pretty decent fight. So it still should be viewed as a solid season for the Dolphins last year, even though it might have been disappointing for Dolphins fans and thinking hey, this team could have done a little bit more. Fair enough. They didn't do a ton in the offseason in terms of free agency, didn't have a ton of resources. They'd already made the big deal for Tyreek Hill and gave him a big contract. Then you do the same thing with Bradley Chubb, that trade deadline deal, give away your first-round pick and so forth. So the guys that signed in free agency, like Mike White, David Long, Braxton Berrios, those are more like depth guys, kind of secondary complementary players. The draft, they also didn't have a ton of resources available to invest or spend. But I did really like the Cam Smith selection. It's assumed he's going to play a lot as a rookie. Devon Achane, when I think about him and his skill set, namely his speed, adding that speed in the backfield to the speed that the Dolphins have at wide receiver in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that's a type of speed that's going to give defensive coordinators across the league nightmares and fits having to think about how do they contain and deal with all that damn speed. Speed. The saying is what? Speed kills? Well, if speed kills was an NFL offense right now, it's the freaking Miami Dolphins. In terms of what I like about this team this year, I'll start with the speed again and talk about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill is a top-flight elite receiver in this league. I don't think anybody disputes that. And then you take Jalen Waddle, who is certainly one of the very best number 2 wide receivers in the league. When you look at the way this offense is constructed, they've got 2 wide receivers as a duo that you would put up against just about anybody in the league, right? You'd put them up there with the Jamar Chases and T. Higgins. You'd put them up there with the A.J. Browns and Devontae Smith. They would hold their own. So you want your young quarterback to succeed, give him help. Well, the past couple of years, Chris Greer and the Dolphins front office has given Tua help. I look at their run defense. They were allowed the fourth fewest rushing yards last year. I don't see any big reason to change that. You've got Wilkins and others on the defensive front. Like, this is a good unit against the run. I expect them to hold up the same. And then I look at their pass rush. And you traded for Bradley Chubb, assuming you're going to have him for a full season. You've got Jalen Phillips, another year of his development in that system. And you've got the way they utilize some of their linebackers, can get some pass rush off the blitz. This is a solid team that can defense in terms of being able to get to opposing quarterbacks, and I expect that to remain the same in 2023. In terms of some of the question marks, I think the biggest question mark, some might say like the secondary on the defense, fair, but I focus mostly on the offense here, and I start with the offensive line. How is this unit going to hold up in 2023? Like Teron Armstead, they gave big money to last offseason to come in. And I remember talking about this when Bears fans were trying to pump up trying to sign Armstead. I said, it sounds great. He's a great left tackle until you realize he's not going to make every fucking start. And are you really comfortable with the guy missing 3 to 6 games every year and paying him that type of money? I'm not. I'm just not. The Dolphins were, and they have to live with that. But, you wonder how many games is he going to play this year? Austin Jackson hasn't exactly been great. Liam Eichenberg, I believe, is slated at starter at one of the guard spots, maybe left guard, and he's nowhere near great. Like, this is a team in the Dolphins that's invested a lot in the offensive line, and in my opinion, done. Armstead's different. You knew he's great. It's just the injury problem. But some of the draft picks and so forth on that offensive line have not been good. That's pretty bad evaluation and development for that offensive line unit. Then you look at the running game. It's an offense that lacked balance last year, and you look at the running backs and you say, well, of course they freaking did. They had nobody that scares you and makes you worried. And they still don't. They basically ran it back mostly with that same group and then added A-Chain to that mix. They've got more speed now because of A-Chain, but how much opportunity is he even going to get? But that running game, they need a little more balance, because if you can run a little bit more effectively, it'll open up things even more for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But the biggest question, obviously, has got to be Tua. And I'm sorry, Tuanon, this is true. Like, you start to wonder if he's left-handed Jimmy Garoppolo. Solid, but not a stud. But the number one ability that he doesn't have that you really need out of a franchise quarterback is the ability of availability. Like, it was striking to see how different the Dolphins were last year with Tua versus without. But that's the problem, right, is they always have to account for time without him. And if he's going to continue to get his bell rung and get concussions or get other injuries, the Dolphins have a really important long-term decision to make. This is a massively important year for this organization. In terms of the Dolphins' schedule and what I expect, I look at the first 4 weeks. Like, that's going to be a pretty big bellwether of where this Dolphins team could land in 2023. They go to the Chargers in week 1. They go to New England in week 2. Then they host Denver. They go to Buffalo. That's a pretty brutal stretch right there of schedule. 3 of the first 4 on the road. A couple of division games mixed in. You've got the Chargers on the road. You've got Denver coming in. They should be improved under Sean Payton this year. Like, if the Dolphins can even get through that stretch of schedule 2-2, they shouldn't be feeling too bad. Anything better than that, you feel great. But even if they were like 1-3 there, you'll be like, oh, they might look like a disappointment because they started 3-0 last year, but that schedule's no joke. And then you look at the end of the season. You've got the Jets at home, Dallas at home, and then have to travel to Baltimore and then host Buffalo in week 18. So 3 of their last 4 are at home. That certainly looks right now like that's not an easy stretch of schedule. I look at this Dolphins team and say, even if Tua stays healthy, I don't know that they're a whole lot better than they were last year, and I think their schedule's a little bit tougher. So I think they could be a threat for one of the wild card spots, but division, I don't know so much. I think they're like a 9-win team, and them and the Jets will be battling out for second in this AFC East.